The stage lights of the Golden Ear Awards were dazzling, but they couldn't compare to the burning pride in my chest. Unseen Truths, the brainchild I had nurtured for 3 years, had just won Best Investigative Podcast of the Year. I, Lena Hansen, at the age of 39, along with Ethan Vance, my co-host and creative partner, stood on the podium, tightly clutching the gleaming gold statuette. "We dedicate this award to the victims whose stories were forgotten," Ethan said into the microphone, his voice deep and emotional as usual, capturing everyone's attention. "And to all those who relentlessly seek the truth." I smiled, nodding in agreement. Ethan was always the eloquent one, the public face of Unseen Truths. As for me, I was the one working behind the scenes, delving into cold case files, connecting disparate clues, writing the scripts that made millions of listeners hold their breath. We were a perfect duo, or at least, I used to think so. Cynthia Sterling, CEO of Auracast, the podcast network that had signed an exclusive distribution deal for Unseen Truths, was also on stage. She put her arm around Ethan, beaming. "The success of Unseen Truths is a testament to the fantastic collaboration between creative talent and a strong platform. And we are incredibly excited about a new chapter, an even more dynamic direction for this series in the future." A new chapter? A more dynamic direction? Cynthia's words sent a vague sense of unease creeping through me. The next day, that sense of unease became a harsh reality. I was summoned to Cynthia's lavish office at Auracast headquarters. Ethan was there too, but he avoided my gaze, his expression a mixture of awkwardness and guilt. "Lena," Cynthia began, without mincing words, her voice as cold as ice. "We are very grateful for your contributions to Unseen Truths over the past period. However, Auracast has decided not to renew your contract." My ears were ringing. Not renew? But we're preparing for the 4th season. "And the movie deal?" "Precisely," Cynthia interrupted, a smug smile flickering across her lips. "The film based on Season 1 of Unseen Truths is progressing very well. And Auracast, as the sole owner of the series copyright, will continue to develop it. Ethan will take on the role of sole host and executive producer for air-imagined version of Unseen Truths." I turned to Ethan, hoping to find some protest, some defense from the friend, the colleague I had trusted implicitly. But Ethan just looked down, muttering, "I'm sorry, Lena. This is a business decision." "A business decision?" I repeated, my voice laced with bitterness. "So all my hard work, the sleepless nights, the dangers I faced pursuing these cases, it's all just past contributions?" Cynthia pushed a file towards me and said, "This is an offer to buy out everything you call contributions. A rather handsome sum, I think. In return, you will have no further ties or rights to the Unseen Truths brand in the future." It was an insult. The money wasn't worth a fraction of the true value of what I had created, especially with a lucrative film deal on the table. They wanted to sideline me, to steal all my achievements. And Ethan, with whom I had shared every idea, every discovery, was complicit. "I'm not signing anything," I said, my voice trembling with anger, yet I tried to maintain a steely composure. "You'll be hearing from my lawyer." I walked out of Cynthia's office, feeling like my whole world had collapsed. Ethan's betrayal was more painful than Auracast's blatant actions. We had started Unseen Truths from a makeshift recording studio in my basement, with 2 old microphones and a fervent belief in the power of truth. I was the one who had found the forgotten Blackwood Manor case, the case that made a name for the first season and attracted Auracast's attention. Ethan was initially just the script reader, but gradually, with my encouragement, he became more involved in shaping the show's style. Now he was willing to trample on all of that for fame and money. The following days were a long string of chaotic emotions, from despair and pain to indignation. And finally, a steely determination. I wouldn't let them take my work so easily. I sought out Julian Cole, a top entertainment and intellectual property lawyer in New York, renowned for successfully defending the rights of independent creators. Julian's office was in Midtown Manhattan, overlooking the bustling traffic below. "Miss Hanson," Julian said after I had laid out the whole story and showed him the relevant documents, including the initial contract between me and Oracast, as well as emails and notes exchanged with Ethan. "This is a complex case, but not without hope. Oracast may hold the distribution rights, but the issue of original ownership of the idea and a creative elements needs to be clarified." I took a deep breath. "I have something else, Mr. Cole, something Oracast and Ethan don't know, or deliberately overlooked." I told Julian about Nix's. It was the pseudonym of a crucial anonymous source who had provided me with shocking evidence. Never before seen documents related to the Blackwood Manor case. Nix's only trusted and communicated with me through a special secure channel. It was Nix's information that made Unseen Truths different, giving it a depth and exclusivity no other podcast had. And Nix's, from what I knew, still held even more terrifying information that could make for another podcast season or enrich the movie script. "And you're the only one who can contact Nix's?" Julian asked, his eyes lighting up. "That's right," I affirmed. "I've built this relationship on absolute trust and confidentiality over many years. Nix's would never work with Ethan or Oracast without me." Julian nodded, a confident smile playing on his lips. "Miss Hanson, this is our leverage. Very strong leverage." While Julian and his team began preparing legal proceedings, Oracast and Ethan were oblivious to the potential danger. They heavily promoted Unseen Truths, the next chapter with Ethan as the sole star. They held press conferences, releasing flashy trailers. Ethan, in interviews, always tried to appear modest but didn't forget to emphasize his new vision for the show. He even insinuated that I had chosen a different path and wished me success. His hypocrisy made me sick. I didn't sit back and wait. I quietly began to execute my own plan. I used the secure communication channel to inform Nix's about the entire situation. Nix's reaction was as I expected. Nix's abhorred injustice and betrayal. Nix's confirmed they would only provide information to me, and was willing to issue an anonymous statement through a trusted third party to confirm my irreplaceable role if necessary. Next, I contacted a few reputable investigative journalists in the media industry. People I knew would be interested in a story about a large corporation suppressing an independent creator. I provided them with basic information, without violating any confidentiality agreements, but enough to pique their curiosity. Julian Cole, after gathering enough evidence, including my early drafts, concept notes, and initial copyright registration for the Unseen Truths concept, which I had done even before Ethan joined the project, sent a formal warning letter to Oracast. The letter demanded they immediately cease using the name Unseen Truths and core creative elements belonging to me, and proposed serious negotiations regarding intellectual property rights. Oracast's response was to ignore it, followed by a reply from their legal team asserting they owned all copyrights. They thought I was just a small fish, easily crushed. Right at this time, the film production department of major studio Starlight Pictures, which was collaborating with Oracast to adapt Unseen Truths into a film, began to feel uneasy. They needed to ensure the project wasn't entangled in any legal disputes. And more importantly, they desperately wanted the remaining exclusive information from Nix's to make the film script more compelling. Starlight Pictures' head of production, a powerful woman named Miranda Hayes, demanded Oracast clarify the issue with me. Oracast started to feel the pressure. They tried to contact Nix's through channels they thought I had used, but to no avail. Ethan, in desperation, even tried to call me, feigning remorse and wanting to find a peaceful solution. I coldly refused, telling him to speak to my lawyer. The decisive moment had arrived. Oracast organized a lavish launch event for Unseen Truths. the next chapter at a luxury hotel in Los Angeles, intending to simultaneously announce details of the film deal with Starlight Pictures. Many journalists, celebrities, and important figures in the entertainment industry were invited. Just hours before the event began, Julian Cole officially filed a lawsuit against Oracast in court, requesting a temporary injunction against the release of the new show and the use of the Unseen Truths brand. At the same time, one of the most reputable online media outlets, Media Confidential, published an exclusive investigative piece titled, "The Hidden Truth Behind Unseen Truths. Creator Sidelined, Key Source Refuses to Cooperate." The article quoted anonymous sources, including a statement authorized by Nix's, exposing my entire story, Nix's indispensable role, and Oracast's coercive tactics. Oracast's event turned into a disaster. Instead of questions about the new show or the film, Cynthia Sterling and Ethan Vance faced a barrage of interrogative questions about the lawsuit, the Media Confidential article, and Lena Hansen's disappearance. Ethan stammered, unable to provide a convincing answer. Cynthia tried to remain calm, but her face flushed red with anger and embarrassment. A representative from Starlight Pictures, present at the event, issued a brief statement that they would reevaluate the partnership until intellectual property rights and source access issues are fully resolved. The stock of Oracast, the podcast network's parent company, plummeted in the next morning's trading session. Their reputation was severely damaged. Ethan Vance became a laughingstock on social media, labeled an opportunist and an idea thief. With no other choice, Oracast was forced to negotiate with me and Julian Cole. This time, their attitude had completely changed. Gone was the arrogance, replaced only by a desperate desire to salvage the situation. The negotiations lasted for days, incredibly tense. Julian Cole, with his sharpness, presented irrefutable arguments about my intellectual property rights to the original concept and Nix's crucial role. Starlight Pictures also applied pressure from behind the scenes, demanding Oracast settle with me if they wanted the film deal to proceed. Finally, an agreement was signed, a complete victory for me. Firstly, I received a huge financial compensation, including a percentage of profits from previous seasons of Unseen Truths, and a significant share of future revenue from the entire brand, including films and merchandise. Secondly, I was recognized as the creator and co-owner of the Unseen Truths brand. My name would be restored and prominently credited in all related products. Thirdly, I established my own production company, Veritas Narrative, which would co-produce all future seasons of Unseen Truths as well as the feature film. I would have full creative control. Fourthly, Ethan Vance's role was significantly diminished. He was merely a nominal host, under the strict direction of me and the Veritas Narrative team. All his creative efforts or content direction were dismissed. Alternatively, he could choose to accept a contract buyout and leave entirely. Ethan, fearing loss of face and having no other options, accepted to stay in a limited role. Cynthia Sterling, after this scandal, faced severe criticism from Oracast's board of directors. A few months later, she quietly resigned. Oracast, though still a large network, learned a costly lesson about respecting independent creators. Veritas Narrative quickly became a respected name in the podcast production industry. With abundant financial resources and absolute creative freedom, I began developing the fourth season of Unseen Truths, based on new and even more shocking information from Nix's. Simultaneously, I was deeply involved in writing the screenplay and producing the feature film, ensuring the story was told as authentically and compellingly as possible. The film Unseen Truths, The Blackwood Manor Confession, premiered a year later and became a box office phenomenon. It was not only a commercial success but also received critical acclaim for its authenticity and investigative depth. At the Academy Awards, the film won the award for Best Adapted Screenplay. As I walked onto the stage with the screenwriter to accept the award, I looked down at the audience, where Ethan Vance sat quietly, almost invisible. It was a moment of recognition, not gloating, but the peace of someone who had found justice. Veritas Narrative didn't stop at Unseen Truths. My company produced many other successful podcast series across various genres, from true crime and history to social issues. I always prioritized creating a work environment that respected creativity, protected producers' rights, and encouraged unique voices, especially those of women in media. Years passed, and I still occasionally remembered the shock of that betrayal. That pain had become a part of me, but it was no longer bitter. It was a reminder of the power of resilience, the importance of protecting one's intellectual labor, and the value of truth. During a talk with young journalism students at my alma mater, a student asked me what helped me get through that difficult period. I smiled, looking at the young, enthusiastic faces before me. It was the belief in truth, I said. The truth about your work, the truth about your worth, and the truth that no one can steal your voice if you don't let them. Always remember that. Protect what you create with all your intellect and courage. Because in the end, the echo of truth is always stronger than any lie or injustice. And when I saw the determination shining in their eyes, I knew that my story, like Unseen Truths, had truly touched and inspired a new generation. That was the greatest legacy I could hope for.